Find other great podcasts like this one at podmoth.network.
Oh, hi! If you're looking for another spooky and funny podcast to add to your rotation, check out Anything Bones, now part of the Podmoth Network.
Hey Boneheads, I'm Sophie Schwartz.
And I'm Caitlin Hart.
And we're the hosts of Anything Bones, the podcast where we talk about bones and bone-related topics.
Soph, what are bone-related topics?
Thank you for asking, Caitlin. This can be anything from mausoleums to murderers, famous skeletons to cadaver dogs.
Bone churches, mummies, serial killers. You'll hear about them all.
And sometimes we have guests stop by and tell us their favorite bony tales.
Check out Anything Bones on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, or wherever your little heart desires.
We release new episodes every Saturday.
Bon voyage!
All right, I think I hacked in. We're on the air? Shh, security's outside. But how's my hair? It's a radio station. Psst, psst. You guys hear about the Beyond the Shadows podcast with Ryan and Scott? You guys into paranormal? What about true crime? How about UFOs and cryptids? We also have mad hauntings. We got security. No, we don't. We're not big enough to need it yet. No, we got security.
Hey, what are you guys doing? Get out of here! Listen to the Beyond the Shadows podcast. Beyond the Shadows!
Welcome to the Brutal, Bizarre, and Boozy podcast. I'm Deklan, the son.
And I'm Jane, the mom. This is the podcast where we talk about brutal crimes, bizarre occurrences, and get you drunk with cocktails themed around one of our stories. To lighten things up, we'd like to end our time with a chaser. Please keep in mind some of our stories might be upsetting to young or sensitive ears.
We love hearing from our listeners, so feel free to contact us by email or social media. You can find our contact info in the show notes for this episode. If you'd like to support us through Patreon, you can find us there at Brutal, Bizarre, and Boozy Podcast, or use the link in our show notes. Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for joining us once again for another Brutal, Bizarre, and Boozy episode.
Absolutely. Hi, everyone.
What story do you have for us today, Mom?
I am going to be telling you about a serial killer that had a recent documentary come out on Hulu, and his name is Herb Baumeister. He is a lesser known, I think, serial killer. So
interesting. I don't think I've heard that name before, so I'm excited to hear about that.
Yes. What are you going to be telling us about?
I am going to be talking about the Hindenburg.
Oh. I'd say fun, but not fun.
It's also brutal, but it was an intentional murder, so I put it at bizarre instead.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it is pretty brutal. I don't know all of the details of it, so I'm looking forward to you telling us about it. Before you get into the drink, I want to do a quick shout out to podcast friends of ours, Amanda and David with 1-0. They are back from their hiatus and super excited that they are, because they took some time off and now they're back, and so we can all go listen to that. And if anybody doesn't know, they do an amazing podcast, and so I just want to give a quick shout out for everybody to go listen to them. And I just want to say, hey guys, I'm glad you're back.
So they're always a fun group to hang out with.
Absolutely.
If you haven't, go check out our collaboration episodes with them.
Yes. So, but now that I did that, let's talk about this drink that I think is going to be gross.
Well, the name is right on the money with the story. It's called the Fireball Smash. And if you don't know, both of those things are included in this story.
Yes.
So to make this, you need 1 part Fireball whiskey, which is, or I guess any cinnamon whiskey.
True. Yes.
But so 1 part Fireball whiskey, juice from half a lemon. Doesn't say what size lemon. A
Right.
splash of simple syrup or cane syrup, also doesn't say how
Say
much.
how- Right.
And fresh mint, either muddled or in pieces. Combine ingredients over ice in shaker, shake vigorously, and serve in a tall glass. I don't know how it can be in a tall glass because there's not much liquid in this.
Right. I had a
It's like,
little the only size like I thought I had a big bottle of Fireball and it turns out all I had was like a little tiny
hobo
uh
bottles.
well, I would say like the kind you would find in a mini bar in a
Oh,
hotel
you had
room.
shooters?
I had just the little tiny baby bottles, right? The
Okay.
little sample bottles, if you will. And I had to use the whole thing because I was like, it needs to go in a tall glass. And then I filled up the glass with ice, and it's still only half full.
Yeah, it's
So
more of like a shooter, I guess.
it is. It
Unless
is.
you do a lot of Fireball in there, but
Right.
mine's
Which
pretty small. I
who
didn't.
wants to do a lot of Fireball? Not me.
I don't know if
But
I've ever had it before this. Like the real stuff. I've had the fake Fireball, like that
oh,
you can buy at
well,
gas stations, but I don't know if I've ever had the real stuff.
yeah, this is I don't know how you do cinnamon whiskey with mint. Who thought that that would be a good combination? I don't know. It can't be good.
I'm trying to think of like cuisine that
Cinnamon
uses
and mint.
cinnamon and mint, and I can't think of a single thing.
No, because they don't go together.
Yeah, it's gonna be weird, I think. Should
All
we give it a
right, let's
try?
taste this disgusting thing.
I
It's
can't really
really
taste the mint that much.
weird. It's really weird. I used probably 6 mint leaves. I tore them and I muddled them. I don't think I used enough lemon juice.
Yeah, half of a lemon juice is
It's so vague.
like half an ounce, like if that.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not as disgusting as I thought it would be. I think
It's
the
just weird.
mint
It kind of
kind
tastes like
of
medicine a little bit.
yeah, the mint cuts the cinnamon flavor, like the red hot candy flavor. It kind of cuts that a
Yeah,
little bit, but I don't think I'll finish this.
it's definitely weird. I just had to pick it because of the name. So
Yeah,
let's talk about the fireball smash that happened with the
with
Hindenburg.
yes.
So, in light of the 94 aircraft accidents in the first 2 months of 2025, I will be
What?
talking about one of the most infamous commercial aircraft
Wait a
accidents.
second. Where did you get that statistic? Because that is bonkers. Did you say
Google
94
94 aircraft incidents
worldwide?
worldwide just
Does
this
that
year.
does that include like little tiny planes?
Yeah, that includes like the one person passenger planes. There was one like
Oh,
last week where 2 of them hit into each other head on. So,
good lord. Okay,
yeah, there's
that's gross.
a lot
First of
of
all,
scary
you
things.
need to stop looking up those kind of statistics. Because
Okay, but it's hard not to because all I see in the news now is, oh, Delta plane flipped upside down, passenger plane collided with Black Hawk
I
helicopter. Like,
know, but we like to travel and we can't drive to Europe and we can't drive to Hawaii
Yeah, but I wish we could. It's
I know, but okay.
that's
All
scary.
right. Hindenburg.
Okay.
Hopefully this
So
never
the
happens again.
Hindenburg. Yes. Well, I mean, I don't think there's the Goodyear blimp. Do they still use that?
They do use that blimp, but I think it's powered by something else.
We'll get into the
Okay.
Hindenburg was a lot larger than the Goodyear blimp. The Goodyear blimp
Oh,
was like a quarter of the size, I think.
really? Okay.
Yeah. So the Hindenburg was a German-made rigid commercial passenger blimp made by the German Zeppelin company. The Hindenburg was named after the president of Germany, Paul von Hindenburg. After a successful round-trip flight from Germany to Rio de Janeiro in 1937, the Hindenburg would debark on its fateful journey. On May 3, 1937, the Hindenburg left from Frankfurt, Germany, carrying 97 passengers, which consisted of 36 commercial passengers and 61 crew members. American Airlines had made plans with the Hindenburg to land in Lakehurst, New Jersey, and shuttle the commercial passengers to Newark, New Jersey, where they were going to hop on a flight and go wherever they were going.
Cool.
The Hindenburg was 803 feet long and 135 feet wide and was constructed of a control car similar to a captain's deck on a boat, a passenger area, 16 different gas cells that held 7.06 million cubic feet of hydrogen, which floats more than helium, to help fly the Zeppelin. And
Okay.
there were 4 propellers along the side with uh, 1,190 horsepower engines to help prepare the aircraft.
Okay.
So this was a big mamma jamma filled with
Yeah.
a lot of hydrogen.
And quite a few people.
So the Hindenburg was similar to a modern cruise ship where there were crew decks and passenger decks. So
Okay.
the bottom level of the Hindenburg featured a dining room, a lounge, a writing room, and promenades on both starboard and port side. So it's they talk about it like it's a boat instead of
Like a
like
boat. Yeah.
yeah. So it's
Like an
basically
airplane.
like a cruise ship in the sky.
So how long, maybe you said this and I spaced out, but how long were the flights typically?
They would go for like weeks long because they're flying from Germany to Rio and back and like
Oh,
going to the US. Like they're going all around the country and it's made a
right.
bunch of successful flights before this incident happened.
Okay. Okay.
So the passenger rooms resembled cruise ship rooms where there were beds like on top of each other in a bunk style and they were
Okay.
very small. So it's
Gotcha.
pretty much just enough room for you to change
Sleep.
your clothes and lay down.
Gotcha.
The second floor held passenger suites, the kitchen, and the toilets with showers. So you didn't even have a toilet in your room. Which is weird though.
Oh.
I wonder how they got
Mm,
the
yeah.
the plumbing on that thing.
It was just a bucket. It was a
I
fancy
doubt it, because
bucket.
they probably just had a poop chute though that went straight outside.
Oh, can you
'Cause it was the
imagine?
37. You're just walking and a turd from the Hindenburg lands on you.
I don't
It's like
like
worse than
it.
a seagull pooping on you.
No kidding.
After a fairly regular flight across the Atlantic, the Hindenburg pulled into Lakehurst, New Jersey on May 6, 1937. There were some thunderstorms over the airport, so the pilot, Captain Max Pruss, took passengers for a ride along the New Jersey coast first before attempting his landing. At around 6:22 p.m., the Hindenburg was cleared for landing due to the thunderstorms passing. The aircraft made its way to the airport and was preparing for landing at 7 p.m. When the Hindenburg planned on landing, it would fly low and slow with several ropes down for ground crewmen to grab a hold and physically pull down the Zeppelin. Yeah.
Well, that doesn't seem very good.
And it's Let's think about if like only one person held on and the others missed the rope. You're just flying, hanging onto a rope off this
Yeah.
thing. Like,
Yeah.
plenty of things to go wrong.
I don't like it.
The
How do you
wind
get
speeds
that
were
shitty
fairly
job?
intense. Yeah. Well, they
Grab
kind
the
of started
rope.
to figure it out, but
Jesus.
the wind speeds were fairly intense this day, and some of the ground crew were replaced with a mechanical winch to help stop the zeppelin. So they would guide the rope onto the winch and then let
Okay.
mechanics stop it, which seems a lot safer.
Yeah.
So Captain Pruss fought the winds for 25 minutes, trying to make multiple entries to land, and would steer off course last second because no one was able to grab the ropes. So
This whole
it
rope
seems so
catching
much more
thing
scary. Yeah.
is as sketchy as shit.
And we'll see it causes issues later,
Well,
potentially.
for sure. Oh, good God.
So the rope dropped from the port side of the aircraft and was attached to the winch on however, the starboard side was never caught. I don't know which is which,
So
but
they
one
only
side
caught
was
one
anchored
side.
down. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Causing, I'm sure, it to tip a bit.
So witnesses reported seeing a small tear in the fabric of the Zeppelin and a small blue fire coming out from the tear.
No.
So like a propane, propane fires look
Yeah.
kind of like faint and like a different color than normal fire. They could see that.
Yeah. Oh.
Scientists say this could be from static electricity or St. Elmo's fire, which I tried to look into this and it's really confusing. So if I didn't get it right, sorry, but it's a weather phenomenon that occurs when a positively charged item comes into contact with gas in an electrical field, which is, they say,
Okay.
was left behind from the thunderstorm because I guess it changes the electrical
Okay.
field of the air or something like that. I don't really
Right.
know, but when gas comes in contact with that electrical field, it's called St. Elmo's fire.
Okay.
I don't know if that's correct though, because it used a lot of big words. So this creates a buildup of luminous plasma, which may be seen as a blue flame.
Okay.
So seconds later, the Hindenburg caught flames, which ignited the hydrogen and caused the entire thing to just burn to the ground. All the gas escaped. It just it wasn't necessarily an explosion, but it was super hot, super fast. Just the whole incident lasted like 30 seconds.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
fast.
And killed a total of 35 out of all the total passengers.
Oh.
So out of 97,
Okay.
about a third of them died.
I thought everyone died.
I thought so too, but
Huh.
I was
Okay.
there were survivors. There was people that died on the impact. There was people that died in the hospital later due to burns
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So
Well, yeah.
a couple of people died.
Okay.
The fiery scraps of the Hindenburg were sent back to Germany, which were used in the construction of the Luftwaffe for the Nazi army.
Mm.
Because this is right around the time that the Nazis took over Germany, and I think
Okay.
I don't really know the history of Nazi Germany that well, but I think they were a political party for a while before
Yeah.
they started World War II.
Yeah.
But anyways, they sent what could be salvaged back to Germany to be reused. But how did the fire start? Well, it's ultimately impossible to determine exactly what started the fire. There are some different theories.
Mm. Okay. Good.
So
Good theories.
the Zeppelin company had been receiving threats about shooting down their aircraft. So
Really?
Hugo Echner, yeah, they didn't really specify what the threats were about, but they had reason to believe that it could have been caused by a shooting. So Hugo Echner, the owner of the company, initially suspected that the aircraft was punctured by a shot that occurred from inside the craft.
Oh.
Yeah. Captain Pruss suspected one passenger, an acrobat named Joseph Spa. Joseph brought a German Shepherd to surprise his family with and made several unaccompanied trips to his dog, which was held in a freight room near where the initial fire started.
Okay. Did the dog
Joseph was also
survive?
seen. I didn't see anything about that.
Okay,
So,
we're just going to assume the dog
dude,
survived.
Schrodinger's dog. Yeah,
Yep,
there's 50%
dog
chance.
survived. Okay.
Joseph was seen making several anti-Nazi jokes, which was not a great sign, being that the Nazi Party was the government of Germany at the time.
Right. Okay.
There's another theory, the static spark theory. The Hindenburg was constructed in a way that didn't allow the distribution of static electricity throughout the aircraft, so when they passed through the tough weather, some of that static electricity built up in the frame of the ship. When they threw down the ropes at landing, it is speculated that when the ropes hit the ground, it caused the metal frame of the ship to become grounded, but the fabric of the ship was not grounded, causing
Oh,
discharge of the static electricity into the hydrogen.
inside.
Yes.
Ooh.
So another
Okay.
theory was the incendiary paint theory. It was theorized in
What?
1996 by a NASA scientist that paint on the fabric of the Hindenburg was the main reason for its failure. The paint used on the fabric consisted of iron oxide and aluminum impregnated cellulose acetate butyrate.
That's a lot of words.
Yeah.
A lot of
Which
words
are
that
the
I don't
key
know what they
ingredients
are.
in, well, I'll tell you what they are. They're the
Okay.
key ingredients in rocket fuel and thermite.
Okay.
Yeah. So this thing was just
Shit.
a matchbox flying
Yeah, it
through the sky,
was.
meaning that one initial flame, like once it was started, it would burn
Yeah.
very hot and very fast, which is exactly what
Right.
happened. And then the hydrogen just provided like
More
a
fuel.
boost to the flame.
Yeah.
Yeah. The site of the Hindenburg crash is at the Lakehurst Naval Entity of. It's in Lakehurst. Okay, it is
Okay.
a big name, but it is marked with a chain outline pad and bronze plaque where the airship's gondola landed.
Wow.
If you want to go see the crash site of the Hindenburg, go to the Lakehurst, New Jersey airport. I think it's a
Wow.
naval base that they have it on, so you might not be able to just get in and go see it, but
My goodness.
interesting story.
Yeah.
Like,
I
it's
feel
crazy. I
like,
think if they got the whole flying and landing thing figured out, I feel like it'd be a pretty cool experience. If it was like a cruise ship, you just
yeah. I was
go
looking at
and
some
fly through the
pictures
skies.
when you were talking about it. Pictures of like the dining area and the rooms, and they were pretty cool looking. You were
It
right.
looks like an old cruise ship.
Yeah,
Like,
it totally does. Um, I don't know why I didn't know that it was like a long journey. Like I just thought it was they were flying it around for a couple hours. I didn't realize it was a
they're
transatlantic
doing like,
kind of.
yeah, far flights.
And back in the day, I feel like they didn't know as much about science to go, should we really fill a giant balloon with flammable gas?
Yeah.
Should
I mean,
we?
hot air balloons, I think that's how those work. They use gas and like flame,
Yeah,
but
but they're heating
you
the
also
air
can't
inside
control
the
that. Like,
balloon.
it's
They're not, although I mean, I don't know. I've never been on a hot air balloon. I don't think the gas inside of the
I
balloon
think you're
is
right. I think they
flammable.
use
I
the
think it's
heat.
just yeah,
Yeah, because hot air rises, so it probably pulls
right.
the mass of the balloon up or whatever. But
Right.
yeah, using explosive hydrogen gas as the main thing keeping you in the air is pretty pretty sketchy.
And and also painting your giant balloon with
Thermite.
the ingredients
That's
for rocket
crazy.
fuel, probably not a good choice.
Yeah,
Science
I
is
would.
good, people. Let's focus on sciencey things. Feel like they didn't know science that well back then.
Yeah, I'm looking at the. it would be really cool to go on this thing. Like,
Not full
it would
of
freak me the fuck
hydrogen.
out, but like, well, if you didn't know that it was just gonna blow up, it'd be a really cool trip
Yeah.
because I'm looking at the pictures of the promenade and it's like the
Hmm.
angled windows, so you just kind of look down over the world as you're
That would be
floating
cool.
above it.
Yeah,
The
that would be cool.
bedrooms look a little rough, but
They're tiny. I don't like the whole
they're
bathroom
little itty bitty.
situation either.
And now having a bathroom in your room is very nice.
Yeah, and a fully functioning bathroom, no less. Like you said,
I was kind of
what's going on with the plumbing?
yeah,
People have to take
I don't even want to know.
showers.
So I'm curious if they allowed smoking because that would
Oh, for
very
sure
easily
they
go
did.
wrong.
For sure they did. Back then, everybody was smoking everything and nobody gave a shit. They thought it
Yeah,
was
I mean,
healthy to smoke. Oh, you have
you'd think
tuberculosis?
they'd
Maybe you should
know
have a
though.
cigarette.
It'd be like they probably know hydrogen is flammable. They didn't expect this to happen, but if someone was smoking, then there could be very poor outcomes that I'm sure they
Yeah.
tried to at least check on. But I also saw that the hydrogen was scented with garlic. I don't know how they did that, but
And
it
or
was in
why?
case there was a leak, they would be able to smell it.
Oh, okay.
Because I
All
don't
right,
know
that
if
makes
hydrogen
sense.
has a smell necessarily,
I don't
but
know. It
they
probably
flavored that
does
one
when
with
it's
garlic so that
caught everything on
it
fucking
catches on
fire.
fire. Yeah, true.
um, I feel like this should have been something that they did on Mythbusters.
Yes, you're right. Like testing all the different theories, like
Yeah.
how did this happen?
I don't know if they did, but I
That's a
feel
good
like they
point.
should
That's a
have.
good point.
I mean, they did so much weird stuff on there. I feel like they should have. It would have been cool.
Let's see.
Live Googling on the Brutal,
Well,
Bizarre, and
they
Boozy
did do it.
podcast. Did they?
Yeah, they've got a YouTube video about it.
Oh,
The
cool.
Hindenburg mystery. I might go watch that
Mm,
after this.
for sure. For sure.
All right, let's hear about your story, Mom.
Okay, so here we go into my diabolical serial killer. Um, I mentioned in the beginning that there's a new docu-series really, because it's 4 episodes and it's pretty long, but there's some interesting information in that. There's several
Is it
documentaries
like
from older.
is it like a documentary or like a dramatization?
No, no, it's a
Oh, okay.
documentary, but there's
I
4
like the
episodes.
dramatizations more. The
Sometimes they're
how much
okay,
did you
but
watch it yet?
sometimes I did. I
Is it a
did. It's
lot
on
of just like,
Hulu.
oh, it's my grandma's dog's babysitter,
No,
like, oh, he was a
no,
cool guy. I didn't know he
nope.
would kill
I
people.
mean,
Okay.
there are a few
I can't
interviews,
stand
but
those.
same. Those drive me insane. This one had a lot of new information that I had not heard or seen before. But
Okay.
the documentary is on Hulu. It's called The Fox Hollow Murders: Playground of a Serial Killer. And it is about the man Herb Baumeister. He was born April 7th, 1947 in Indianapolis, Indiana. He was the oldest of 4 children born to father Herb and mother Elizabeth. His father was a doctor, which will play a part in the story much later on. Herb's early childhood seemed fairly unremarkable, but in adolescence, he started displaying some strange behaviors that resulted in him being psychologically evaluated on multiple occasions. He eventually was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia an antisocial personality disorder. But, it's the 50s and early 60s, and, why treat stuff like that? Let's just find out what's wrong with him and then just ignore it. So he didn't get any psychological treatment for his diagnosis.
Seems like these diagnoses are very similar in our other stories.
Yes, for sure. I think you have to have some antisocial personality issues and some psychological distress in order to end up a serial killer. That would be my guess. Herb made a few short-lived attempts at college, but he ended up just moving between jobs. In 1971, Herb got married to Juliana Sater, who went by the name Julie. Just a few months after the marriage began, Herb was committed to a psychiatric hospital for 2 months. And the diagnosis at that time was compulsive personality disorder. So
Compulsive personality.
compulsive. Yeah, I don't
Is that
know
different
exactly. I
than
think
like
that's
multiple personality disorder?
yeah, I think compulsive is more like OCD type stuff.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But it
Hmm.
didn't really the source that I was looking at didn't really go into like what that was. I mean, he got treated for whatever he was in the psychiatric facility for 2 months. So, there's some
Jesus.
level of treatment there.
Yeah.
But I mean, he did go home. Julie and Herb would have 3 children together, and he was described as an involved father. They did stuff together, family activities. They would go places and trips and stuff, and no big red flags or anything. In 1988, Herb started a thrift store chain in Indianapolis called Save-A-Lot. The company was successful and ended up having 2 store locations. With the success of his company, Herb bought an 18-acre farm called Fox Hollow Farm in 1991. The farm was located about 20 miles away from Indianapolis in a quiet community. It was a nice home. It was a big home. Like, if you look at the pictures of Fox Hollow Farm and you look at the description, I was trying to find like a square footage, and I finally ended up finding one. I think it was like 11,000 square foot home. Had an indoor swimming pool as well. But one of the descriptions given was a modest home. That's not a fucking modest home. I
It's
mean,
very large, but
maybe modest
it
compared to like a castle. But when I think modest home, I'm like 1,500 square foot, 2,000 square foot, not 11,000.
maybe I'm looking at the wrong thing, but it does look modest for how large it is. It's not
It's a
like opulent.
it's an
It's just kind of like a normal
English
house shape with
Tudor style, kind of L-shaped because there's like a garage off to the side.
little
It's a
mother-in-law suite or whatever.
it's a big friggin' house. And it has an
Yeah.
indoor swimming pool. I don't think you can call
Lovely.
any house with an indoor swimming pool modest, but that's just my opinion.
They use it for wedding venues, but I have a feeling based on the story you're gonna tell us, you wouldn't want to have a wedding there.
Well, I think a certain group of people that like dark and haunted, creepy things would probably dig getting married there.
I feel like it would just be foreshadowing if you got married at a murder house. Like
Yeah,
that's like going to the Amityville horror house and getting married.
right. But
Horror, not whorehouse, but
I think I think there's a group of the population who would think that's cool. People that like dark, macabre things would probably be like,
it just seems
I
like
don't
bad
know.
news to me.
I agree with you on that. The grounds surrounding the home were heavily wooded and serene. During the 1980s, several young men and teenage boys, many who were known to be gay and sex workers, went missing from the Indianapolis metropolitan area. Some went missing from unknown locations, while others had last been seen near or at gay bars. 11 of the missing victims during the 80s and early 90s, 11 of those missing men were found dead at different locations, all near Interstate 70. Almost all of the victims had signs of strangulation. Even though a few of the victims had been last seen with another male, police were not able to identify who it was. Law enforcement believed they had a serial killer on the loose, and he was nicknamed the I-70 Strangler. In 1991, the bodies stopped showing up near I-70, but men were still going missing from the city. In the summer of 1994, a man named Mark Goodyear had a scary experience. Now, I'm going to tell you the story, and
Okay.
then we'll talk about it at the end, because after watching the documentary, there are some more information and questions. So I'm going to tell you the story that was the narrative for decades.
Okay.
Okay. So Mark Goodyear was a gay man, and one of his good friends, Roger Allen Goodlett, had gone missing. There were no clues about his friend's disappearance. Mark met a man at a club about a month after his friend went missing. He had a strange feeling about how the man was looking at several missing persons posters, including the poster for Mark's missing friend, Roger. The man called himself Brian, which turned out to be a fake name. Eventually, the two agreed to leave together, with Brian explaining he was taking Mark to the home of his boss. I don't know if he was like, hey, I'm staying at my boss's house or whatever, but that's where they were going. After driving for a while, they arrived at a home, and the two men ended up by the indoor pool. The pool area was rather strange, with multiple mannequins set up around the room as if they were having a party. So there's all these mannequins posed in different
Oh my God,
places.
that's terrifying.
Right?
What
Horrific.
the fuck?
Awful.
I'm leaving
Right?
ASAP.
For sure. So the pool area was where they ended up. There's like a bar area, some seating stuff, or it's not just like the pool in a room. There's like socialization area around it. So they're hanging out down there. The two had consensual sex, and Brian asked Mark to choke him for sexual gratification, but Mark said he would not let Brian do the same to him. He was like, I'm not into that, but if that's what you want me to do to you, all right. And according to Mark, Brian talked to him about how it was really like how he liked to look at people's faces when he was choking them and the reactions and things like that. Pretty gnarly.
Ugh, that's
Which
nasty.
the investigators later were like, those are weird details, that something's fishy there. After the evening ended, Mark reported the situation to a private investigator. That's the information in a lot of the sources I looked at, was that Mark went to a private investigator, not directly to the police. And that I guess the private investigator talked to the police about it. Maybe. I don't know. Mark also explained that Brian gave him a drink at one point, and he was concerned that the drink was laced with something, so he threw it out. And he believed that Mark had assumed he drank it until he realized that Mark was not as impaired as he should be if he drank the drink. Needless to say, police were very interested in the information that Mark was describing. That was in 94. In early 1995, Herb and Julie's son made an odd discovery while walking with a friend through the woods at Fox Hollow Farm. The son had found a skeleton and a skull partially buried. And the kid, not knowing what it was, apparently told the parents, told his mom, and his mom was like, "What the hell is that?" Herb explained the finding away, saying that the skeleton had belonged to his father and had been used for professional purposes. Because remember, Daddy was a doctor and he went to medical
Well,
school.
you can't use your
So
own body for medical purposes when you're
he
dead.
Dad had a skeleton for medical school, had given it to Herb.
I see. Okay.
Herb's explanation was that the skeleton had been in their garage and an animal came in, dragged the skeleton off, left it in the woods, and that's where the son found it.
Okay. Sure.
Sure, exactly.
Sure.
However, taking Herb at his word, the family didn't think much about the strange finding, and within a week, the bones were gone, and nobody mentioned it to the police. Kid didn't say anything to anybody. Wife kept it like, whatever, okay, it's just your
It's peculiar.
dad's old medical school. Sure.
Bones.
Bones, right. Almost a year after Mark had met the man, Brian, remember his fake name, with the strangulation fetish, he saw him again. This time, Mark was able to get a description of his vehicle and a license plate number, which he gave to the police. In the meantime, the police knew the information about the pool and the weird house and the mannequins, but they couldn't ever find it because Mark didn't tell them how to get there. He said it was this weird route and he explained it, but he couldn't remember. And so they never found the house. Well, now he's got a license plate number. So he tells cops, hey, this is the guy. Here's the plate number. Registration comes back to Herb Baumeister. Police confronted Herb, who, of course, denied everything. He's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Wasn't me. Whatever. Deny, deny, deny. Investigators also contacted his wife, Julie, who insisted there was no way her husband could have killed anyone, let alone been hanging out at gay bars. She was like, no, that's not my husband. Both Herb and his wife were asked, can we come and look around the property? We don't have enough for a search warrant, but will you let us search anyway? And of course, they did the right thing and said no. They denied it, but again, no search warrant, nobody's getting out there. Julie still hasn't told the cops, oh, by the way, my son found a skeleton in the woods behind our house. She just says, no, you can't come out and search it.
Detail.
Yeah. The relationship between the couple became strained, and they started having, they were also having some financial issues. Julie filed for divorce in January 1996, and they soon after that, she said, hey, guess what, cops? You can come look. Have a field day. Come out to the property. Search away. She then tells the investigators about the skeleton that her son had found the year before, but of course it's gone now because Herb
Taken away by animals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She took them to the area in the woods where the remains had been found, and police found a bone. They soon found more bones and teeth and all sorts of stuff.
That doesn't look good.
No. Some of the bones were just buried, some had been burned, some were very small in pieces, and needing to be pieced together like a puzzle, like they'd been crushed and burned. Bad things happened to these bones. During the early stages of the investigation, 4 sets of remains were identified by dental records. Local law enforcement chose to look into skeletal findings further, but didn't detain Herb. So they're finding all these bones, and they're like, we just don't have enough to detain him or arrest him. Seems like nowadays that would
Yeah.
be different.
Yeah. Seems a little fishy.
Yeah. We're talking 1996. So, and again, he's a member of the community. He's a business owner. No one had anything bad to say about him except Mark Goodyear said this guy was weird, but they don't even really, know for sure that Mark's telling the truth. They're just like, well, this guy said this weird thing happened. So they don't arrest him, which, of course, bad things happen. On July 4th, 1996, Herb's dead body was found in Canada. He had committed suicide. He left behind a 3-page suicide note. And unfortunately, he left a lot of unanswered questions because the suicide note did not mention any of the suspected crimes. None. It was just a note about his family and wanting to eat a peanut butter sandwich.
That's weird.
For sure. Over the years, more than 10,000 bones or bone fragments have been located on Fox Hollow Farms.
Jesus.
Yeah. By 1999, only 8 missing people had been identified from the remains on the property. In April of 1999, Herb was listed as the primary suspect in the I-70 strangler cases, but the cases technically remain unsolved. But the I-70 strangler bodies stopped turning up around the same time that Herb bought Fox Hollow Farm.
Yeah, that seems a little on the nose.
Yeah. The case has appeared in the news again. Like I said, both local news, but also with this docuseries on Hulu. The coroner for that county is making efforts to identify the bones found on the farm, and he's requesting family of the men who went missing in the 80s and early 90s to submit to DNA for testing. They're trying to use like the familial genealogy capabilities now to try and identify some of the unidentified remains. Since the renewed testing started, they have been able to identify a couple more victims. Guesstimates to the number of actual victims that could have been on the farm could be over 2 dozen.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. They have 10,000. They still are finding bones on that
That's
property.
crazy.
Some investigators also believe that Herb may not have been acting alone. They question how one man could have moved so many bodies over 200 yards to the woods behind his house without help from anyone else. Because they
Was
think
he
a
a big
lot
guy?
of, I don't think, his picture, he looks very small. But I mean, he's not a big, strong looking guy. He's just a puny little looking guy. They think a lot of the deaths probably happened in the pool area, and he would have to drag a dead body over 200 yards into the woods. And they were like, I don't think he could do that. So they think that he had help. However, there were a lot of bullets and shotgun shells also found in the woods. So they think, as well as like rope and handcuffs, they think that maybe he had tied people up and walked them into the woods and killed them in the woods, which could explain how he could get so many people back there, because he's walking them out there. But I don't know. Once Herb died, the investigators just stopped looking at other possibilities. And they actually kind of closed it out, and they were like, we don't need to identify anybody anymore. We're done. But now the new coroner is like, no, we need to get some answers for families of missing people. So in respect for the identified victims, here is a list. Johnny Bayer, Jeff Jones, Richard Douglas Hamilton Jr., Alan Lee Livingston, Stephen Sperling Hale, Alan Wayne Broussard, Roger Allen Goodlett, Michael Frederick Mike Kern, and Manuel Resendez. Now, in the new docuseries, because I watched an old one from Investigation Discovery, and then I watched the new docuseries, and the old one was in there in little snippets. But they've got some new people looking at some of the information, and Mark Goodyear, the guy who came forward and said this weird, shady thing happened, he's now changing his story a little bit, because he said initially it was just the one encounter. And now, decades later, he's saying that he was actually in a relationship with Herb off and on for a couple of years. He's changing his story about how he was stalked by Herb, and then
deal.
he stalked Herb, and it was just super weird. It was super weird. So some seasoned investigators are looking at it and going, I think this guy was involved, or at least he knows more than he's telling us. And why didn't he have this information back then? And why is his story changed? And then they also found somebody who claimed to have been out at the house when Mark Goodyear was there, and somebody else was killed and shot, but nothing ever was followed up by that statement. So I don't know. It's really weird. I'm not saying anybody was involved. Who knows at this point? But it's definitely a question that is coming up with the docuseries and people looking into the case further, because once Herb was found dead, they were like, all right, we're done.
That's kind of sad for the victims' families.
For sure. Especially if there's 22 dozen people still unidentified out there.
Yeah.
And that doesn't even include the dozen I-70 Strangler cases that they think he was responsible for. So,
Jesus.
yeah. So that's my lesser known evil serial killer story.
Yeah, I haven't heard of that guy before.
Right. And a lot of people think that that's because it never went to trial, because he
died.
He died before.
Interesting.
Yep. Oh, and another weird thing was the day before he died, police had stopped him and said, you can't be sleeping in this public park. And they noticed in the back of his car there were boxes full of VHS videotapes. And when they found his deceased body, there were no tapes in his car. So what happened to the tapes?
If it was in the 80s, I might be involved in the book that I'm reading, because that's only 8 hours away from Omaha.
Okay. Could be.
Hmm.
I don't know.
There's a lot of people implicated. That whole thing had the clown serial killer implicated, Gacy.
Oh, yeah. Which we haven't done, but
Yeah.
we should do.
We should do. There I need to do some more bizarre research on it though, because he might be linked to some. We might be able to do a 2-for-1.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, do you have a chaser for us?
I do. I have a watch recommendation for you guys today,
Perfect.
and that is White Lotus season 3 is out. Well, the first
Oh,
episode is out.
I know.
Uh,
And we are purposefully not watching it because we want to binge several episodes together.
yeah, it's got Billy Bob Thornton in it.
Does it
Or not
really?
Billy Bob. Sorry,
No.
no, Walton Goggins.
Walton
I
Goggins.
get them
Big difference.
mixed up. Yeah, I get them mixed
Yeah.
up. But yeah, it's got Walton Goggins in it, and it's the second episode comes out tonight. So I
Okay.
think it comes out at like 10 tonight. So I think I'm gonna have to watch it tomorrow. But
All right.
episode 1 is decent so
Okay.
far.
Cool.
It's got the
That's
whole
exciting.
weird like White Lotus vibe. Like I
Of
didn't like
course it does.
season 2
Perfect.
very much, but I love season 1. But
I
it's
liked
got
them
that
both.
kind of like you got to figure out like what's going
Yeah.
on because everyone's acting a
Right.
little weird.
Yeah. I love it.
What is your chaser?
My chaser is also a watch recommendation, and that is for the movie The Gorge on
Hmm.
Apple.
Okay.
So it is about these two highly trained snipers, one on one side of this gorge and one on the other, and they are hired to observe the gorge for weird happenings and evil things that are living in the gorge and gonna come out of the gorge.
Okay.
And I started watching it because I thought it was a show. We started watching it, had absolutely no concept of what it was, and got totally sucked in. It's really good.
Hmm.
Highly,
Okay.
highly recommend it. There's conspiracies, there's evil, gross creatures that want to murder everything. There's
Hmm.
it's really, really good. I even asked your dad, I was like, how do you describe this movie? Like, what is it? And he's like, I don't even know. I don't know. It's good though. It's really good.
Hmm.
There's
I'm gonna
creepy
have to
stuff
check it out.
that
What's it
like
called again?
The Gorge.
The Gorge. Okay.
Yeah. I
What's it
think
on?
you'll really like it. I think you'll really like it.
What's it on?
Apple.
Apple. Okay. I'll have
Yeah.
to check that out.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that brings us to the end of today's episode. Thanks
It
for joining
does.
us, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Make sure to rate us on Apple, give us a thumbs up, a follow, a
Yeah.
share, all that
Share
fun
with all
stuff.
of your friends. We
Yes.
love making new friends because our current friends shared us. So thanks, everybody.
Yes. Thanks for checking us out. Love you, Mom.
Love you, bud.
Bye.
Hey, friends. Thank you for supporting our podcast. Please share our show with your brutal and bizarre friends. Give us a boozy follow on your favorite podcast platform. If you're feeling extra generous, we'd appreciate a 5-star rating or review as well. But maybe do that sober so all the letters are in the right place.
You can find all our contact information in the show notes. We love hearing from you, and if you're interested in helping us stock the bar for our future boozy episodes, you can find our Patreon link in the show notes as well.